So Chav Zayin Amud Beis, I think, is that true? Chav Vav Amud Beis. So we have the Mishnah, and the Mishnah earlier spoke about a shvuya, a woman who was captured, that was choshesh that she was Nansa. It's going to talk about a few more cases about similar scenario. And here it talks about nechbasha. Nechbasha means imprisoned, chavush. And the prison is more, the shevi means captivity from an enemy and or bandits. And nechbasha means imprisoned. And it seems that there's some kind of illegality over here. That if she was in prison, so Aliyah Mom, it seems that there was because of money, and they are expecting to get money. It's not Dafka ransom. It doesn't seem like it's a ransom. It's not like Pidin Shvuyim. It means she was in prison because of a money issue. And if they pay the money, so then she'll be freed. And the Nefashas means that there was somebody is death penalty for somebody by the Goyim. And then Asur Bala, then she is choshesh that they consider her hefka. The fact that her husband, was even going to say, even if her husband is decreed death penalty, also they will mark the women, and the Goyim would choshesh that they would be bold the wife, they would be minus the wife. So here Rashi seems to the word labala doesn't only mean to a kohen. By a kohen you talk about asur mut, even if it will be an onus. But here, the fact that it says asur labayla, it sounds even if it will be a Yisrael. And here Rashi tries to say that it could be that when it's Aldena Fashos, and it's possible that she would even agree in order to save herself. She might agree willingly, even though she wouldn't want the whole thing. But under the circumstances that her life is in danger, it seems. So she even might have agreed. If she agrees, so then it might be considered berotzon. That's a dik in the Mishnah that Rashi tries to talk about. I didn't see that the Gemara talks about it yet. But they do say, that does seem to say that even Eshes Yisrael also would be also because Choshesh that she agreed to it. That she might not only she agreed to it, but she might have even seduced them in order to save herself. So that's why it'd be us even Eshes Yisrael. So in general, maybe it's more later on that I didn't see it. But so far, the Gemara is going to talk about this point about the moment and the Nefashos. By moment, they're scared to lose their money because since there's some kind of legality over here that they want to get their money. And if they're going to be honest, the woman, so then they're going to lose their money. Not they're going to lose their money in a way that the people are not going to redeem her. Of course, they're going to redeem her even if she was Nansa, but they don't have any rights to their money anymore. There's some kind of a legal system, it seems, that they had a right to take this woman because they weren't paying whatever they have to pay. And if they're going to be honest, then they're not going to have the right to get the money anymore. So therefore, we're not choshesh that they were honest. But if it was not in the Nefashos, so then they're not scared, and therefore she would be Asur. And as Rashi and Taish say, Asur Labala sounds even if it will be Eshes Yisrael, because that she might have even done it, she might have seduced them in order to save herself. That's the main point of the Mishnah, the difference by a woman who's imprisoned, if it's for moment or for Nefashos. Rav Shmuel Rav Yitzchak Amar Rav Lo Shana Bar L'Shad Yisrael T'kifa Al Goyim Avol Yad Goyim T'kifa Al Atzman Afilu Adei Moment Asur Labala. That this is only talking about when there's the Jews. The Jews are the ones who are dominating. They're the dominating power, and therefore it goes according to the laws. And it seems again that they have a right to imprison this woman because they owed money. And if they're going to be monitored, they're going to lose the money. But if the Goyim are dominating, the Gemara uses a euphemism to say that they're dominating themselves. Of course, the word Al-Asman means on the Jews. So the Gemara didn't want to say the word that the Goyim are dominating the Jews, but that's the idea. If the Goyim are in power, so then we're choshesh that even if they're going to be ma'anaser, they're not going to lose the money. So if they're not going to lose the money, they're not scared. They're only scared they should lose the money. So if the Jews are in power, so then they're scared they're going to lose their money, so they won't be ma'anaser. But if the Goyim are in charge, they're the ruling power, so then they're not going to lose the money, even if they are ma'anaser. So then you don't trust the whole thing, and even if it was only for a moment, also the woman would be suspect that she was Nansa or even Esratza, even willingly, and therefore should be also. That was the statement of Rav. Masib Rava. Rava has a kasha from a Mishnah that says on the side that it's an Edios, a Mishnah and Edios, and he wants to disprove this point that if the Goyim are dominating, that it's Asur. Masib Rava. It says in the Mishnah, Hey, Yossi HaKohen B'Chai Ben Akasav Al Bas Yisrael Shehurana B'Ashkelon. There was a Bas Yisrael, a Jewish woman, that was Hurana. The word Hurana, Rashi says, means Nismashkan, means it was taken as a mashkon. She was taken as a collateral. It seems that there was money that was owed, and the Goyim took a woman as a collateral that they should pay back. the Gemara is going to soon say that it seems that the time for the payment was over and they didn't pay. And according to this law, the agreement of this mashkon, the goyim had the rights to keep her. So it says a case that there was a basis that was taken as a collateral in Ashkelon, and after she was freed, that her family was choshed that she was Nansa. I'm not sure if it means either onus or Ratzon, but that the family was choshed that she was raped, and therefore they distanced her. Means that the question of who she allowed to marry, they considered her that she was defiled by the goyim. But there were Eidim that said that she was not. She had Eidim that said that she was not secluded even. She was never secluded and she never was defiled. The Rashi says the word Eidim means the same Eidim, means the same Eidim, her Eidim means the same Eidim who informed us that she was taken as a mashkin in the first place. That also said that she was, but she never was defiled. She wasn't even secluded. And the family still was scared, even though they were Eidim, which is very strange. Even though they were Eidim, they still were scared to permit her and assume that she was not defiled, because the goyim usually do defile. The Chachamim said to the family, you can't do this. The whole source of your information that she was taken as a mashkin in the first place is only from these Eidim. So if you trust in the Eidim, so trust them also that they say that she was not touched. And if you don't believe that she was not touched, then don't believe that she was taken in the first place. It means it's just a little strange because Pasha Asa. Usually you don't need this. Usually Eidim are Eidim. Here we're saying that the Eidim have a Pasha Asa, like as if to say that they don't. You're not trusting the Eidim, which is usually Eidim don't need a Pasha Asa. Eidim is the Eidim. You only say a Pasha Asa on a person himself who is telling us his own information. Here's the Eidim coming. It's not the girl herself. But anyway, maybe this was in order to convince the family that they should trust her. But anyway, the Mishnah says that without these Eidim, she would have been Asa. That's the main point that we want to derive from this Mishnah, that the only reason why she was mutter is because she had an Eidim that said she was not secluded. But if not for that, she would have been Asa. For Ashkelon, the case of Ashkelon, this said, we know, the Gemara knew that this case of Ashkelon, the going over there were the ones who were in power. It wasn't the Jews. And you're saying that it should be, that even for money, it's Asa. But the difference is the Gemara still has a diak because so far everything sounds good. Even for money, they're Asa. Says that's what we just said. That usually for money it should be mutter, but over here it was Asa, and she had to have Eidim that she was mutter. But the Gemara, the Mechalek v'katani horana in nech b'shalo. So there's a difference between horana and nech b'shalo. Horana, Rashi seems to say that she was taken as a collateral. If she's taken as a collateral, that means it was an agreement. If you don't pay by this and this time, so we keep the collateral. And that was the case, that they had something they had to pay. There was some kind of monetary payment that they had to make. Like a
little bit like a slave.
If the mashkin is if the mashkin is over, the time if the mashkin, if it's a collateral and they didn't keep the term, so then after the time comes up, so then they're allowed to do whatever they want with her. So over there, she really had to have Eidim that she was not defiled because that was the agreement that they should be able to take her. But then the deal could be nech b'shalo. That's only because it was a mashkon and the time was up. But if it would have been that she was in prison and they had no legal right to be ma'anis her, they didn't take over. They took her, they imprisoned her because it was a debt that was owed, but not that they have rights to be ma'anis her.
What is nech b'shalo?
Nech b'shalo means imprisoned, like chovesh. Well, a chovesh nowadays. Chovesh means paramedic because they call it chovesh because they bandage. The word chovesh means to bandage. But the nech b'shalo means imprisoned. Here it doesn't mean paramedic over here. Here it means chovesh means that somebody is chovesh b'veis asurim, somebody who is imprisoned. So if the Mishnah only says over here the reason why she had to have Eidim that she was mutter is because she was horna, that's because that was really the agreement that they should have rights to her. The goyim had rights to her after the mashkin was not paid, after the debt was not paid. But then we could be medayik. But if it would have been nech b'shalo, then she would have been mutter because they had no right to defile her. And you're saying that if the goyim have power, so then it should be also even if it was nech b'shalo. The Gemara's kasha is that Rav said before that if it was God going to keep her, they can't be trusted. And even if there's no right that they should defile her and get the money still, but they don't care and they go and do what they want. So if so then the story here doesn't have to be such a case of extreme case about Horna, even if it would have been nech b'shalo, also should have been Asa, if you're right. That's the Gemara's deal. That's Rabbi's kasha on Rav. The Gemara says in the top line, the answer to the kasha, who didn't I feel nech b'shalo, you're right. It would have been Asa without Eidim, even nech b'shalo alone, because Rav is right, that since the Goyim are the ones who in power, so then they they would take the right to defile her, even if they're not legally allowed to. But here's the story. It wasn't saying a din here. If it was saying a din, then you're right. Why does it say, why say a bigger chiddush? Don't just say who or not. Say even nechbasha would be yasser. But my shishai, this you're saying a story over here. When it says the hey, this thing that it says in Edius, it's not talking about a din. It's telling you a story. Hey, they said a testimony about Yisrael. It's a real story that happened. So that was a story. It happened to be that it was Horana, but it would have been us. It would have been nechbasha also. The woman would have been us without Edim, because since the goyim are in power, so then we don't trust them. And even if legally they wouldn't have been a right that they should be on a servant, but they do it anyway. So there's no kasha. Again, just to zoom out a second, what happened? The Mishnah said that if the woman was in prison because of monetary matters, so she's mutter because they're not gonna defile her. They might lose their money. They'll lose the legal right to get their money. But then Rav said that's only when the Jews are in charge and they go according to the laws. But if the Goyim were in charge, so they don't care about the laws. And even if she would have been defiled, they would have still been able to collect their money. The more the kasha from a place where it says that the woman is usher, but it talks about an extreme case about horana, which means that there was an agreement and a collateral. And over there, the Gemara understands, of course, she'd be usher because they had legal rights also to be ma'anas if they wanted to. And you can be medayik that nechbasha would have been usher, but the Gemara says you can't be medayik that because there was a story over there. So it said the story, and next time it would have been usher, even nechbasha. So at this point, the Gemara Rav said a statement that if it would have been the goyim are in power, so then it's usher even for a moment. The Gemara the kasha, the Gemara answered the kasha. As the Gemara very often does, the Gemara says the opposite. As far as the Gemara didn't know everything yet, and the Gemara flips everything around. Rava thinks not that he has a kasha, Rava thinks that he has a support. The support to Rav's din, at this point, the Gemara is not going to differentiate between nechbasha and horana. It says the whole Mishnah over again. Hey, Rabbi Yossi Hakon, Rabbi Chai ben Akasa, Val Bas Yisrael Shehorana, V'Ashkelon, V'Chakov b'nei Mishpachta, V'Edem Midam Allah Shelo Nistera, V'Shelo Nitma, V'Amu Chachamim, V'Atem Aminu Shehorana, Aminu Shelo Nistera, V'Shelo Nitma, V'Menatem Aminu Shelo Nistera, V'Shelo Nitma, Alta Aminu Shehorana. The same Mishnah over again. Let's repeat it over. That there was a Eidos testimony from two Tanam that they said a Jewish girl was taken as a collateral in Ashkelon, and the family was choshed that she was defiled, but the Eidim said that she was not, and they weren't relying on the Eidim, and the Chachamim said you have to rely on the Eidim because if you don't, then don't rely on what they're saying that she was taken as a collateral in the first place. Anyway, what does it say? That she's only what if she has Eidim, and that's what the Gemara wants to learn out from here. For Ashkelon, Dali Dei Momen. What's the problem? Why she should be yasser? The Mishnah said that if a woman was taken only for monetary reasons, so then she's mutter. But it says here it's only mutter because she has Eidim that testify that she was not defiled. The time of the Eidim Eidim Mosa, her Ein Eidim Eidim Mosa low. The Mishnah over here in Eidim, it means that the more is bringing a support to the difference because that if the Goyim have rule or not. That if you take our Mishnah alone, it says that if it was only monetary issues, so the woman is mutter. Over there it says monetary issues, she was usher. Is that not a support to Rav, since the Goyim are in charge, and then they don't care if it's monetary issues, they're also going to defile her. It says here that the money would have made, if it's monetary issue, so then she would have been usher, and you see it's only with it because of Eidim, that must be a support to Rav. So it's the same thing over again, same thing, but instead of asking kasha, he already thinks that this is he doesn't see the difference between Horana and nechbasha. The first Gemara took it for granted. Horana means taken as a mashka, taken as a collateral, and they have a certain time to pay the money. If they don't pay the money, so then the malva, whatever, the one who has the debt, who has the creditor, is allowed to take the mashkin for themselves. That's much worse than nechbasha. Nechbasha means that they don't have a right to defile them. The Horana means that they have a right. So the Gemara is saying now is my love. There's no difference. It means the top line of the Gemara assumed right away that there's a difference between Horana and nechbasha. That there they have a right to take her because the payment wasn't made on time. Payment was not made. That's the case. The case was that the payment wasn't made. Time came, they didn't pay. The time is up, and they didn't pay. That's what Rashi tells us. Here's Rashi on the top. Years man below nifnes that the time was up, and that's why over there she's more asa because that was the agreement. But nechbasha is not like that. Nechbasha they don't have a right to defile her. So the Gemara at this point didn't realize the difference. My love loshna hirona loshna nechbasha, and if it says that she's asa, that's a right to Rav. That the reason is because the goyim are in charge, and that's why we asa her, even if it was a monetary imprisonment. But the Gemara says no, that's not a raya. No, horana shani. You could say horana is different because over there, since they, according to the agreement, they had a right to take her after the payment was not paid. That's why she's asa without Eidim, testifying that she was not defiled. But in the case of imprisonment, that they had no right, they're not legally allowed to defile her. So then it wouldn't be a proof. The Ma'aser Rav says that it's not that we didn't disprove him. We just said there's no proof. The Gemara Rav says that if the Goyim are in charge, so then they're going to get the money even if they would have defiled her, and they don't go according to the legalities. Even though they weren't allowed to defile her, they're still not going to lose their money. That's what Rav said. The Gemara tried to bring a proof. They didn't have a proof because the story just says a case where there was an agreement of a collateral, and after the collateral, the time came, it was not paid. So that's the reason why the woman is asur. Some say the same thing over as we said till now, but instead of Rav saying it on his own, the way we had it till now quoted, to go back to the beginning of Gemara, the beginning of Gemara starts that Shmuel Bar Yitzchak said it on his own, not to answer the kasha. She does say that our Mishnah says that if it was only a monetary issue, she's mutter to her husband. That's only if the Jews are in charge, but if the Goyim are in charge, so she's not. He didn't say to answer the kasha. She just said it as a matter of fact that there's no svara to say that it's mutter if it was if the Goyim are in charge. But now the Gemara says the same thing over again, but he's saying it to answer the kasha. Ika, the Rami Lomirma. So I'm asking as a question and an answer. Tanan, the same thing over again. All the information we have already. Just how do you juggle it? Amish says that if it was only she was in prison because of a monetary issue, she's mutter to her husband. We don't assume that they defiled her. The kasha of the Mishnah and Nidyas. Hey, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Zechariah, the whole story over there in Ashkelon, that they said that she's mutter because they were Eidim. For Ashkelon, they moment, we could only time with Eidim Eidim Mosa. The Mishnah over there says only reason why she's mutter is only because there were Eidim to testify she was not defiled. If not, she would have been Asur. But our Mishnah says if it's only a monetary issue, so she should be mutter. So it's a contradiction between the two Mishnayos. To answer the kasha, Umashani, Yom Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak lo kasha. Can't she had to keep all goyim? Can't she had goyim to keep all asman? But Rav was coming to answer this kasha, and answer the kasha over there in Ashkelon. The goyim were in charge, and that's the reason why she's asur, because the goyim don't go according to the rules. And even if she'd be defiled and she wasn't supposed to, they're still not going to lose their money, and therefore they're choshed that they defiled her. This is Rav, and the same thing as he said in the beginning. But according to this version, he said it in order to answer the kasha. Just to point out that the Gemara really could have said another teretz. The Gemara could have said teretz says Horana is different. The way the Gemara said this for until now, that Horana, since there was a collateral and time was up, so then they're legally allowed to defile her. So then that would be another answer to say how come over there had to have Eidim. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says this teretz that when the goyim are in power, so then they don't go according to the rules, and she'd be also even if it was only a money issue. So just to sum that up, the Mishnah said that we have now. We have three cases. We have a case of nefashos and two kinds of mammon. We have nefashos if she was taken, or she might have been defiled because of she or her husband, as we'll see in a second, even if her husband is, what is the word? A verdict, a death sentence, whatever the word is going to be. They were sentenced, or not accused, but already sentenced to death. So we'll see soon in a second if that's true. I said that word also is not true yet because the Mishnah doesn't talk about that also. But if there's some kind of a death issue over there, so then the goyim mamafka the woman, and then she's bechosha that she was defiled and she's asur to her husband. That's the Mishnah. So for the Gemara didn't discuss that. Let's discuss the other part when she was taken because of money. So the Gemara comes out that there are two issues about money. Horana is worse. If she was taken for money, not the case of the Mishnah, but she was taken as a collateral, and there was an agreement that they should pay by a certain time. If not, then they take the woman. So then she surely would be asur because even legally, so to speak, she would have been mutter to them. They wouldn't be mutter. They would be allowed to take her do whatever they want. So therefore, she definitely has to have Eidim in order to prove that she was not defiled, and then we trust the Eidim. But there's a case of a nechbasha, which means that she was imprisoned because of monetary issues. Not that they have a right to defile her, but we don't trust them. And if they're not going to lose their money, so then they would take the liberty of defiling her, even though they're not legally allowed to. But the Gemara talks about a difference between if the Jews are in charge or if the goyim are in charge. If the good Jews are in charge, so then it goes according to the law. And if they have no right to defile her, and if they defile her, they can lose their money. So then she's mutter. That's what the Mishnah said. But if it would be that the goyim are ruling, and even if she would be defiled illegally, the courts wouldn't make them lose their money. So then they were choshed that she was defiled. That's what Rav came to say, that the goyim to keep her. So then even by moment also would be asur. The Mishnah continued and said about nefashos as also, which we just said that if the Mishnah only could learn that it's talking about that the woman herself was sentenced to death, so then she's asur. and even if she got out, somehow she got freed, she'd be also because she was defiled, and even maybe willingly. But Amarav can go into Sheganvi, the women, the wives of Ganavim. So Rashi says that it means that the Ganavim were sentenced to death. And talking about a Jewish Ganav over here, and they're sentenced to death by the government. And the wives also become Hefker, that if they're gonna kill death sentence for the Ganavim, for the husbands, so then the women also are Hefker, and that's the case that if the Goyim she was imprisoned because of her husband's sins, and the husband's going to be killed, so then they mafka the wives, and they're not scared of losing anything, and the woman will be asin. Levi Yamak, you go nishta shall ben dinai. We just had that yesterday in the Kinnis. It mentioned ben dinai over there. It's very poetic, so it's hard to know what it's talking about. But ben dinai was a Jewish murderer, and he's mentioned in Sota. Over there, it talks about Misharobu Ratzchanim. So they stopped Egla Rufa. Over there, there's a din of Egla Rufa, but once there were a lot of Rotzchem, there were Jewish murderers, so then they stopped bringing Egla Rufa. And over there it says Elazar ben Dinai. It says another name over there. There was some kind of Jewish murderer, and here it says that the government sentenced him to death. And then that kind of case, his wife would be also hefker, and then she'd be choshed that she was defiled by the goyim. So it seems to be the homachlokas here. Rav and Levi. One says it's talking about the wives of Ganavim. One says the wives of a murderer. It seems to be that's the question about the Metzias. It's not halacha. It just talks about what did the goyim do in those times and places. Did they defile the woman or not? So in one place, in one version, they would defile the wives of anybody that was sentenced to death. No difference if it was because of robbery or because of murder. And the other one is saying that the goyim didn't defile the woman if the husbands were only sentenced to death because of robbery, only if they were sentenced to death because of murder. But all this has to do only with the time and place. It doesn't have to do with any halacha. It's just a question of when the goyim were suspect of defiling the woman. This also seems to be a machlokas about the time and place, that if I said before they were sentenced to death. So that's what the Chizkiah says. Only if the husbands were sentenced to death, then they mafka the women. But if they're not sentenced to death, even though they're on trial, they wouldn't yet defile the woman. But Rabbi Yochanan says no, even if it was not sentenced, if they're on trial for a death sentence, also the women are hefker to the goyim, and also have to be choshed that they were defiled. But all these gemaras l'chorah have only to do with the time and place. It doesn't. It's not. I'm just pointing out. I think that it doesn't have to do with the actual psak din. It has to do with the places and times. When will the goyim choshed that they're going to defile the woman, and or not? The next Mishnah is similar subject. We're all under the subject called shvuya, a woman who was captured. We spoke about a captured woman if there's in captivity. So we said that there is a chashash that they were defiled, and all the women become muster to a kohen because they were raped, and a chashash at least, and we have to have testimony that they were not, and not to move to the kohen. Nivala pasala, a woman who was, we had that in Yevamos many times, that she was had relations even against her will to someone who's puzzle. So she's puzzled. She becomes puzzled to a kohen. That's the case of a goy, a eved, or any Jew that's an amz or something like that. So or Aisha says surely anybody that was and had relations with her, she becomes also to her husband. If it was Ratzon, if it was Ba'onah, she's also to a Kohen. But here now, then we talk about the Mishnah we just spoke about was about the woman who was imprisoned, and also the Gemara spoke about a woman who was taken as a collateral. And here it talks about Kavshua Karchom. The word Karchom Rashi says means in Motzah was besieged, means that the city that was captured. Kavshua Karchom. First it was a siege, and then they took over Kavshua. So this is different than a shvuya. Shvuya means taken captive, and but here it wasn't taken captive, but the city was captured. The city was conquered, and also the soldiers come in and they might defile the women. So that's what it says. Called kahanos shenimsu b'soch hapsulos. All the wives. Usually the word kahanos usually means the daughters of a kohen. Here it means the wives of a kohen. Any wife of a kohen becomes aser because that they were defiled by and a married woman, even if it was ba'onis. Here it's mashma that without choshish for ratzon, only for onus, and onus will be mutter to a Yisrael if his wife was defiled by onus with rape. So they still mutter to his wife, but a kohen is also to his wife, even if she was defiled by onus.
And she says, "I wasn't raped, I wasn't touched."
She's not believed. That's because we have a case where if it's a peshasa, if we didn't know that she was that this thing happened, she comes on her own and says, "We have peshasa, pesha hit it," that we did have. But they should not believe without the Pesha Asna. So here it says that a place that was conquered by Goyim, and the army came in, Yechoshish that they raped the woman, and therefore any wife of a Kohen becomes also to her husband over there, unless she has testimony, as we'll say. Any kind of testimony, even if one aid And even the evidence shifchos were not kosher them. They're also kosher enough to testify that she was not raped. If they say that we know that we were with her the whole time and no guy touched her, so then she would be mutter. But a neman adam al deyas. What a person is not an neman on themselves means that the woman herself that says that she knows that she was not raped, that's not mutter. Only every before. We had a pesha asa.
But is it like the other,
Just move down a little bit.
like the other thing that we saw? It says even an Eved, so but about a Jew also.
Surely a Jew, even
A Jew could say about them, about somebody else, not about her.
a Jewish woman cannot say about herself.
She can't say I wasn't involved. But she
Right.
can say my friend wasn't
Right,
involved.
right. Even a woman and even a maidservant, right, that's right. And that's, we had this case before,
we
that a
had
woman,
before.
even if they say for each other, also believe, each one says on the other
On
one.
the other one. But
That's also, and you're not choshesh that they're doing each other favors.
Yeah.
I'll say for you, you say, you testify for me. That's mutter, but a person is not mutter for themselves. So what did the Mishnah say more than we had till now? Till we had about a shvuya, captivity. Now we're talking about the city that was conquered, the city that was conquered.
She's gonna have a chazaka of the women are defiled.
Right, we're choshesh at least, we're choshesh. It seems to be the same halacha as a shvuya, but it's saying not only a shvuya, which was taken into captivity, even if they're here in the city, b'choshesh, if they captured the city, they came in, the army came into the city, b'choshesh also that they defiled the women. And any
And
wife
it's
of a
only,
Kohen is going
it's
to
only
be
no
lost.
get to marrying a Cohen.
Because otherwise a woman who was defiled by onus is mutter to her husband and mutter to marry Yisrael. But Ashes Kohen, even if she was defiled by onus, she'd be also to her husband. And she also to her Kohen also. She can't marry, if her husband happens to be a Kohen, she's also. And if she's not married there, she can't marry a Kohen anymore. Because that she was nivel al apostla, which is the guy. The guy is the apostle, and even if it was against her will, doesn't make a difference. Akasha from a Mishnah. This Mishnah is where? No, it doesn't say. Okay, maybe it's not a Mishnah, maybe it's a brisa. Balesha shebo le'ir. Balesha, Rashi says, also means a army. An army. Rashi says the reason why it's called Balesha is the word balash means to search. And Rashi says because the reason why they call that is because when they come in, they search the city to get whatever they could. But Rashi, as far as the translation says, it means the army. Balesha shebo le'ir. A city, an army that came into the city. B'shas shalom, chavios psuchos asuros, stumos mutoros. B'shas mulchama, elu mutoros. The fish ain't it's not talking about defiling women here. It's talking about taking wine, and they might have poured it out for avodah zarah, which is yayin nesach. So you have wine in the city, and the army came in. There's the difference between shas shalom and shas mulchama. If it's at peacetime and the army comes in, so then if there's an open barrel, so then we're that they use the wine. They drank the wine, they poured the wine for avodah zarah, the wine becomes awesome. But if it's a closed barrel, then it's mutter because it's closed, it's sealed, like any kind of seal, so they didn't touch it. But b'shas mulchama, if it's during wartime that the army came in, even if you have an open barrel of wine, they're not choshesh that they touched it, they have no time, they're in the middle of a war. They don't have time to pour wine for avodah zarah. If there's no time, they're busy. And that's the Mor's kasha, that here it doesn't differentiate in our Mishnah, and it says that the women are asa. He just said b'shas mulchama should be, they don't have time. If you say that they don't have time to pour the wine, so they don't have time to be boiled women either, to defile women. How come in our Mishnah it says that kavshu karcham, that's mamish mulchama. Here it says kavshu karcham, that the siege conquered the city. So that's during mulchama. So the women should be mutter, because over there it says they have no time. Even the wine is mutter, so the women are asa. I'm Rav Mori, that's a difference. Livel yesh panai, lanasa chen panai. They don't have time to pour the wine, but they have time to defile women. So it doesn't mean that they have more time, but it means that since Rashi says it, that since they have a big desire, so they find time for that. So it's not a kasha. By wine, it's mutter, b'shas shalom, because they don't have time. They're not going to bother pouring wine. They're in the middle of a war, but the women are still usher because they might have defiled them. That was Rav Mori's teretz. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Elazar mishmei dechiski Omar kan b'karkum shel osa malchus kan b'karkum shel malchus acheres. So there's a machlokes Rashi Tosfos over here, and Tosfos seems to be the easier pshat. So it does say Tosfos is pshat. That there's a difference if it was conquered by that kingdom, which would mean the karkum, which means Tosfos seems to say that they're coming to defend. They're coming to defend their own people. The army that came into the city to defend their own people, and the army that came to on the offense that's coming to. Did I get it right? I think so. I think that's what Tosfos learns. I think that's what I'm saying is true, but maybe I didn't get it straight yet. But let's try that. If it's from the army from the same government. So then what?
Karkum is like army.
The Karkum Rashi says in the Mishnah means a matzor, means a siege. It means a siege. But we're using the word over here to mean a siege of your government. So it seems to mean that they're coming to defend. They're coming to help out the people. But they're coming to defend the city. But the point doesn't mean that they're not they're still goyim and they still might defile the women. That the army might defile their own women. So Karkum shall also malchus, Karkum shall malchus acheres. I need some help over here. How are we going to say with Taisus Pshat that malchus acheres, they're coming into foreign territory. So then they're more nervous, and therefore they don't have time. There's no now we're going to say there's no difference between the wine and the women. Before we said there's a difference. For the wine, they don't have time. For the women, they do have time. Now we're saying there's no difference. There's no difference between the wine and the women. If the wine is mutter, the women are mutter. If the wine is us, the women are us. But there's a difference what kind of army it is. If it's the army of the same government, so then they have more secure. They feel more secure. The army feels more secure. They're not scared, and therefore they have time. Then they have time to pour the wine. They have time to defile the women. But if it's an invading army, so they're scared. They're nervous. They're coming on foreign territory. So then the woman is mutter, the women are mutter, and also the wine will be mutter. The Master Kasha, we'll go through the whole Gemara according to Taisus Pshat. Rashi learns everything different. We'll try to go through with Taisus Pshat. Shalosa Malchus Nami Yevshe de Lo Orak, or Taisus Orka Chad Minayu. So Taisus learns the Gemara is going to, based on the Gemara coming up soon, that the Gemara is going to say soon in a couple of lines that even though there's a town which was city which was besieged and the army came in, if there's a place that even one woman could have hid, so then all the women have a heter. All the women could say that I hid. And therefore, a place which is safe, that is one bunker or whatever that she could have hid. If she had such a place, if there's such a place in the city, then all the women are mutter because we don't know who has a heter, but they couldn't get to somebody. They couldn't get to somebody, and all the women could say, I was that woman. That's based, we'll see the Gemara soon, a couple of lines down.
What's a rock?
A rock means to run away. Today also they call that somebody that runs away is called a rock or a ray. There's another that gets a car. The Taisus learns that it was based on this Gemara's conscience based on the Gemara coming up, that if there's a way that someone could have avoided being defiled, such as mutter, if she found a secret hiding place. And the Gemara is saying also, if there's one woman that could have run away, but that's in kasha. Why should everybody be us? One woman kind of could have gotten away.
We're saying that somebody in the same army,
We're saying that
they
it's
would
us.
feel more relaxed and maybe they would defile the woman.
Right. And the Gemara is asking kasha that we're going to see soon. It's a little this part is a little bit dochak that the Gemara is asking kasha based on the information we don't have yet. But Taisus is willing to tolerate that difficulty. The Gemara is going to say soon. I'll just highlight it a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 lines from the wide lines. It says, if there's one hiding place, then all the women that married the Khanim are okay, because they could say we hid over there. There's a hiding place that a woman could have hid, and each one is mutter because they could say I hid over there. Based on this halacha, which the Gemara is going to accept, so the Gemara is asking over here that if there's a possibility to run away, just as good as a hiding place, if one woman could have run away, so we should be matter all of the women, because each one can say, I was the one who ran away. That's how Tosh learns the Gemara. So
what,
it's not
the start to low.
They
can't run away.
It's impossible that there wasn't one person that ran away.
It's impossible that there wasn't.
Right. The Efshe the low or it's impossible that there was not one woman that ran away. And therefore the Gemara is asking, everyone should be mutter. So it's not, we finished the whole sugi about that Malchus, the Malchus Acheres. Then we finished about it. We had a contradiction, we answered the kasha. Two Terusim, either there's not no difference between which government it is. The question is difference between wine and women. And second teres is there's no difference. And it depends if it's the same government, so then they feel secure and that's when it's usher, both by the women and by the wine. And if it's a different invading Malchus, that's when it's mutter because they don't have time. We finished that already. Not it was asking kasha, but he's saying sometimes it's usher. Back to the mission, it says sometimes the women are usher, and the kasha is based on what we're going to say later on, that if there's a hiding place, then all the women are mutter. So too, we should always be mutter because one woman could have ran away. And if one woman could have ran away, each one could say, I was that woman who ran away. That there's no possibility to run away because the guards were so close to each other that they could see each other. It means if there's a place between the mishmaros is going to be the guards that are guarding this siege. and the enemies, the same, whatever. Here we're talking about, we said the same government, but all the soldiers, they are within sight of each other, and no woman could have ran away. And therefore, that's why she's also, because there was no way, if there's a hiding place, it's a hiding place. But if there's issue about someone could have run away, no one could have run away. But the Gemara says that's not true. Even if their guards are very close to each other, the lone nine report, it's impossible that someone didn't fall asleep, means that these guards, they fall asleep also. And therefore, we should say that a woman could have ran away, and we should be mounting all the women, because since one could have ran away, each one should be able to say, I was that one. And even if there are guards that are all over the place, but they fall asleep, and it's possible to get past them. Kids, the Gemara is saying the Gemara is coming back to another way how no one was possible to run away. Was it possible for anybody to run away? What's the case? That the whole city was surrounded with shushilta, means chains, kashalchelas, chains, and kalbas, dogs, gavza is pieces of wood, and navza is geese, and all these mean that it's like saying that if anybody's going to go past the border, then it's going to make a lot of noise. And like chains, metal that would make noise, and kalba, the dogs make noise, gavza is pieces of wood. Also, Rashi says that would make noise.
Alarm system.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Alarm system. They no one could get away. Gavza is geese, and they say that Harusha told me that they have yishuvim that when they don't have dogs available, they use geese, because the geese also make a lot of noise. When somebody's they scream, and that's also a way of protecting the place. That if any intruders come, the geese make a lot of noise. So here, Moise using it that's the case, that the women weren't able to run away because the city was protected by all these noise makers that wouldn't let anybody to run away, and therefore the women were in trouble. There was nobody who was able to run away. That's more or less what the Gemara, according to the way Taisus learns. Rashi knows altogether different, but this is Rashi's term. Avza geese.
Oh, the Gavza is.
Gavza is wood, logs of wood, and Avza is our geese. I think also the word Avaz. Avaz in Hebrew also would be. That's a Hebrew word nowadays also for geese. Barbour. You're talking about Barbour, maybe? Barbour? I'm not sure. Tatiana.
No, that's us.
What did I say now?
You just said
Partridge.
Partridge.
Yeah. It's the one that they ate in the.
How do you say duck? I forgot.
Yeah. Baburim are ducks, no? Baburim was like one of ducks. That's the only translate, no?
Okay, we'll leave it open. Okay, it's not the subject over here, so we're on a tangent. But anyway, what did Gemara say? According to the first subject was about a contradiction. Sometimes the wine, we say wine is mutter, sometimes wine is mutter, because they're busy, they're scared, and the women are usher. Either the Gemara said a chiluk between the wine and the woman. The other time was a chiluk between if it's the same government or the other government. The defending government, they're going also, so they also chashiv that they're going to defile the woman even of their own government. But if that's what it said, that they're the ones who are chashud, they're the ones who feel comfortable enough to be able to pour the wine and to defile the woman. If it's an invading enemy, so then they don't have time, they're not chashud, not on the wine, not on the woman. They want a kasha that in any case, even from the same government, the woman should be mutter because one of them could have run away based on the Gemara coming up, that if there's a heter for one woman, then everybody's mutter, as we'll see soon. That'll be the next sugya coming up. And the Gemara said it's talking about a case where they're not able to run away. First, the Gemara tried because the guards were close to each other, and then the Gemara said that wouldn't be a reason because they might fall asleep. But if there was some kind of a guard making sure no one's going to get away, like you had all of these noisemakers all around, so then there's no way any woman could have gotten away. That's the case that they're rusty. Otherwise, the attacker will be mutter. The next Gemara, the next 4 lines says more or less the same thing we said till now, but it says some didn't even have these kashas. The kashas we had before, these kashas that the Gemara said. And afterwards the Gemara said, because it is the Gemara had to say that it's talking about a case where it was impossible to run away. Some held it, some didn't hold it. Let's see the Gemara. Second line. He told us, Rabbi Bazav told us that there's machlokes Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya and Rabbi Nasiya, by the way, is the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He's not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he's the grandson. It's called Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. At times of a shlokish, more or less. Yes. So here it says the machlokes between him and the Rabbanan. One of them had no. It means he didn't have these kashas to say that maybe one of them is going to run away, and you have to say that it's talking about that the place is surrounded. Otherwise, it would have been mutter. They didn't have the kashas, didn't have the terutzim. They said that if it's also malchus, then it's going to be usher because they feel comfortable enough to be able to do what they want, and therefore it's usher. and there's no kasha that a woman could have run away. And chad kasha like Alani or Shani can go to Masa Shulta Bakalba Gavza Vavza. Another one did have the kasha that we just asked. The more just repeating that what we just said, not everybody agrees to it. The kasha and the terrace, we have to say that it's talking about that there's only it's us if the city was surrounded by these noisemakers, these alarm system. So only some hold like that. There was somebody else that didn't hold the kasha and the terrace. And you don't have to say still on such a case, the woman will yes anyway, and you don't say that one of them could have run away. And that's the end of that sugya. And now on the fifth line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here the Gemara starts the sugya that we just mentioned in passing, that if one of the women could run away, so then everyone's mutter. And this is where that sugya starts. We can start the new sugya over here. Amar Rav Ida bar Rav number of Yitzchak bar Ashan, Im Yesham Machbu Achas Matzalas al Akanas Kul. If there's one place, yeah, it's a chiddush that if one were hiding place, so that each woman can say, I was hiding over there, and therefore we're not going to ask it.
It's a bit cooler. I mean,
It's a bit cooler. Yeah, it's a bit cooler. So the truth is that Isser is also a big chiddush to say that to Asa. To say, it depends what the situation is, but the Gemara says that we're so choshish that the army would have defiled the women that they're all Asa, unless some kind of a heter. So the heter doesn't have to be a huge heter. You don't have to have Edom Dafka. Mishnah says Edom. But the Gemara says even if there's a hiding place that they could have hidden, first the Gemara says a hiding place. It isn't so extreme, a hiding place. And then they're all mutter. What if it's only a hiding place for one woman? Only one woman can fit over there. There's only one hiding place for one woman. Do you say that each one could say she was the one or not? And you say that not everybody could have gotten it. You can't matter everybody. So the Gemara is going to say that they're all mutter. It's hard to say that they're all mutter since there's one hiding place for one woman, so everybody can say I was that woman. But the one's a kasha because we can't be matter all. How can we matter all of them? We're going to say absent all the women are mutter. That's impossible. How can we say all the women are mutter if only one place is the escaping place? Well, so there's this famous Gemara we had in Pesachim, and we'll bring it up any place else where it says there. It says on the side, it's a Mishnah in Taurus, and it was mentioned in Pesachim, and he'll bring it up again. Here it talks about a case where you had a path, a shvil, two pathways. Let's read it inside, and we'll say Shnei Shvilim. Famous case, Shnei Shvilim, two pathways. One of them had a grave on the way. It means if you went through that road, you became tummy. There was a dead person, was whatever. There was tummy underground, and if you passed by that road, you became tummy. And the other one was Torah, and a person went through one of the two roads. And he went through one of the roads, and he afterwards he touched Truma or Kachim. And the question is, did it become tummy or not? And somebody else went through the other road, and also the other road. So now it also touched towers, not the same towers. If it touched the same towers, then surely it's tummy because one of them is tummy. But here, different towers, and each one wants to know, are they tummy? There was Suffolk Tumah, usually Suffolk Tumah, Bishus Rabbim is usually Torah. But here we know one of them is tummy. One of them for sure is tummy. Are you going to say that both of the towers are Torah? One person, Reuben went through one field, one road, one pathway, and Shem went through the other pathway. Both of them touched towers, and one of them for sure is tummy. So are we going to say that was the case? We know that one of the paths there was
before they walked.
Yeah, we know there's a grave on under one of the paths, and one of them went through one, the other went through the other. We don't know who went through which, whatever, and both of them touched towers. And you have the question on those two towers, are they tummy at all? So what's the din? But if each one asks individually, one of them comes to the Rav and says, this is the story. I went through one of the two paths. I'm not sure if I'm tummy. And I touched towers. So the Rav says Torah. Then the other one comes and says, I went through one of the two paths. And Torah, also Torah. But if they come to ask together, so the Rav can't say both of them are Torah because one of them for sure is tummy. If both of them come together, so then tummy. So far is good?
That's a big, gigantic cooler. So
What's a gigantic cooler? No, usually we know Suffolk Tumah B'Shus Rabbim is Torah. We know Suffolk Tumah is Torah. Suffolk Tumah B'Shus Rabbim is Torah. That's one of the.
But it's not a suffix that one of them is tummy.
If one person comes alone, and let's say the story would have been simple. The person went through, not the other, but only Reuben. He went through one of the two fields, so one of the two pathways, and he touched towers. He comes to the Rav. So the Rav says, B'Shus Rabbim, Suffolk Tumah B'Shus Rabbim is Torah. If you're not sure, it might be tummy, it might be Torah. You don't know. So Torah, that wouldn't be a problem. But the problem is that there's somebody else, there's Shimon, and he went through the other pathway, he also touched. And both of them come to the Rav and say, are we Torah? So what's the Rav supposed to say? Torah? Both of them, can't say both of them are Torah because one of them for sure is tummy. That's what Abuda says. If each one comes individually, so then you can say to each one you're Torah. If they come both together, then they have to say both of them are tummy.
Minor community, they come together, they come as one.
Anybody want to explain?
When one person comes, then it's, the suffix is more general, is that? what you're saying?
You just have to be down on that suffix. He comes on himself. Like you said, one person comes without the other person at all. One person comes, he has a suffix. Suffix tummy, which is Ram Torah. But if both of them come, you can't say
Both of
Torah
them
because
coming,
one of them for
then
sure
the
is tummy.
suffix is for sure something's tummy.
So what you can't
It's a
tell,
different
one
kind of
of you is Torah, one of you is tummy. We know that. Now what do we do? So he has to say both of you are tummy. Both of the Torah is tummy because he can't say both of them are Torah.
Contradiction.
Right, that's the way to say it. It would
Both of
contradict.
them are tummy.
But if they come separately, so then he just says your Torah, and the other one comes and says your Torah. If they come, that's what Rabbi seems to say. Rabbi Yossi says that even if they come separate, also they're tummy. That's so far the Mishnah alone. But now the Gemara explains.
I'm sorry, that's the end of the.
That's the end of the Mishnah, but the Gemara didn't finish. It's not the end of the Kasha yet. It's the end of the Mishnah, and with the Mishnah comes the Gemara. It's always mentioned together. The Basachas the Bia called Tmein. Bazachas the Bia called Torim. If it says, even though they say machlokas in the Mishnah, but the Mishnah is not, the machlokas are not so extreme. If they both came together, everybody says Tameh. That's what it seems to say. But Basachas, that's what Rabbi Yehuda said. The Shneim Kachas Tmeis. Even Rabbi Yehuda, who's the Makel one, he says if both of them came together, so then they're Tameh because he can't say both of you are Torah. If they came individually, each one came on his own, then even though it seems in the Mishnah you'd say that if Yossi says that case also is Tameh, Ben Kach or Ben Kach Tmein, that would have seemed. He says no. Yossi also agrees if they came separate mamish, Reuven came first, and he just asked the question about myself. Do we tell him Torah? And then Shimon comes, also he say Torah. So what is a machlokes case? Machlokes is that one came and asked about both of us. I'm coming on behalf of me and my friend. That both of us came on different, went on the two roads. I went on one road, he went on the other road, then we both of us touched towers. What's the law? So you have to answer his whole question. Or you say, you're Torah, and don't tell me anything. You're Torah. If your friend wants to know, let him come. So that Rabbi Yehuda says that you can say such a thing. Rabbi Yossi says that I have to say both. I can't, like I'm saying both of them now. The case is where he's coming to ask on behalf of his friend also. Rabbi Yossi says it's instead they're coming, both of them coming together. So I can't say Torah, so I have to say Tameh. Rabbi Yehuda says this is called, the other one didn't come, Shimon didn't come. So I'll just answer you. You asked about you, I'll tell you your Torah. If your friend wants to come, let him come. I don't have to answer you about your friend. Anyway, what does the Gemara want? That's how we learned the Mishnah and Taurus, but the Gemara's explanation. So no one come to ask us over here. We make a psak. This city, there was a city where there was besieged, and our army came in, and we have to talk about all these women whether they defiled or not. And there's one place which it could have been one person could have been hiding. So what am I going to say? That everyone's Torah. If I say everyone's Torah, it's like saying it's like nothing to do with the machlokes even. This is Taisus' pshat. Taisus points out nothing to do with Yehuda Rabbi Yossi. This is that I'm saying that everyone's Torah at the same. It's like everybody's coming to ask at the same time. Even if nobody came to the bezin to ask, if we're going to say that all the women are Torah, there's only one hiding place, and we're going to say all the women, 100 women over there, we're going to say they're all Torah, even though only one of them was possible to hide. How could you do that? That's like the case that two people came at the same time. And you're going to pass both of them are Torah. You can't. One of them is for sure Tameh. So the Gemara answers.
One's coming by himself.
What?
The 100, you're saying it's each. It's like
no, but we're passing it for the whole city. We're going to say the whole city is Torah. So it's like they all came at the same time. It's not, nobody's coming to ask you over here. We're going to pass it on that. Since we're going to be mad to everybody, that's like they're all coming simultaneously. It's like the case that everyone's masking that it's asa. The basachas they are called Tmein. So that's the case. So here's basachas. Rashi doesn't say. Rashi says that has to do with the Rabbi Yossi, the bottom Rashi. But Taisus says you don't have to say like Rashi. Taisus says Rashi says Rabbi Yossi. Taisus says in the bottom line, you don't need because even according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Gemara says that it's also if they come by basachas. This is called basachas mamish because we're going to pass the whole city, all the women are Torah. How can you say only one of them could be Torah?
Right.
So how could you say that everyone's Torah? So the Gemara says a pasha of teretz. Even though we choshesh, the whole thing is a chash that the goyim defiled the women, but it's not like the case over there. Over there, definitely one was Tameh, one was Torah. You can't say both of them are Torah because it's impossible.
Yeah.
That's called contradiction. Here, you could say everyone's Torah because it doesn't have to be that they defiled. And we say we made an issue that we're going to choshesh that they were defiled. And if you have one place that a woman could have hid, we'll say everyone's stole. Because each person we can say she was the one. But it's impossible. It's not. It's impossible that everyone hid, but it's not impossible that everyone stole. It's not a contradiction to say everyone's stole. It could be everyone is stole. It could be theoretically nobody was defiled. So the Gemara seems to go like that. That if there's a hiding place,
So
even for
when
one woman
the
is good enough.
situation is more makil, then you can also pass kind of more.
Right, because there's no contradiction. It's not impossible that
Right.
it is possible. Yeah, but we would have been machmir. But if you have one hiding place, each one we could say that she was the one, and we'll say everyone is stolen because we don't know which one to be matar. So matar everybody. Bottom line, boy Rabashi, Amra lonech beisi beloneth meisi ma. What if she says I didn't hide, but I wasn't defiled? This is like a regular standard migu peshasa. That till now we're saying that the case would be that the woman, all the women come and say I was the one who hid. We know it's not true because only one of them hid. But we can say each one is story. You say you hid, fine. Now, what if she says I did not hide, but I was not defiled? So she could have said that she hid. So I'm going to say peshasa. Salachar pesho you say peshasa. So mi amrinan ma lila shaker or do malo amrinan. Do you say what do I have to lie for? Which means migu peshasa pesha that what do I have to lie for? If I wanted to say if I wanted to lie, I could have said a better lie. I could have said that I hid. So that's because she says I didn't hide. Also should be mutter. So we're going to see some what the Gemara thought. It's a little difficult what the Gemara, what Havmina was. The Gemara is going to bring a migu b'mokum edim. That's a new concept we didn't have yet. I think we didn't have it yet. Maybe we did have it at one point. I have a small recollection. We had it at one time, but I don't remember. There's a migu b'mokum edim. What if you have a power of a migu? I didn't have to lie, and therefore trust me. But we have a proof that what she's trying to tell us is not true. Not that the migu, she has a good migu, but there's edim to say that the fact that she's trying to get us to believe is not true. That's called the migu against the edim. What would you say? A person who has a migu, whatever the case we said so far, all the migus we had a lot of migus, but we have edim that the fact she's trying to convince us of is not true. So of course edim is stronger, right? We have a case coming up, and the Gemara is going to bring out a new case. So let's introduce what the Gemara is. Amigo against David. We have. Let's say you say that I paid the loan, and I could have gotten out of it by saying that I never borrowed in the first place. So it sounds like a good migu. If you would have been believed to say that I didn't borrow in the first place, so I could believe me that I paid, and then Adam come and say you didn't pay. You say you paid on Tuesday afternoon, 3:00. And this, I was there 3:00. You didn't pay, so but I have a migu. What will you say is stronger? The Edom is strong, even though I have a power of a migu. I could have gotten out of the whole thing. So it's very nice. You have very, very nice migu, but Lamaisa Edom say that you're wrong. So that's what the Gemara is going to bring. That's a concept called the migu b'mokum Edom. And the Gemara is going to ask the kasha over here. It seems to be a migu b'mokum Edom, and the Gemara is going to say that it's not. That's the open to what's going to happen. So the Gemara says, Umayshna, second line.
I missed the first one. Mali
l'shaka, or do you say migu or you don't? Mali l'shaka is another way of saying migu, or pesha hit. Mali l'shaka means what did I have to lie for? That's a legal term called mali l'shaka. What did I have to lie for? If you're choshen that I'm lying, I could have done without lying. I could have said I hid. Why do I have to say a lie that I did not hide? And I was not defiled. Really, I was defiled. And I lied by saying that I was not defiled. If I wanted to lie, I could have said I hid. That's like a regular peshasa.
Okay.
Or you don't say. Now we don't. What do you mean don't say? Of course you say. We had the whole parak. We had 10 peshasas already. So the more is going to explain why you think so. What's different than the story of the following man? He rented a donkey to his friend. He rented a donkey. Don't go on the pathway that goes through the Harper Code, the Ekomaya, because there's water over there, and it's dangerous that the donkey will fall, slip, die, whatever. So I'm renting it to you, but don't go over there because there's water. Still, go to the other pathway that goes through Narash, the Lekomaya. That pathway doesn't have any water. It's a safe path. The other way is a dangerous path. What happened? And he didn't listen to the instructions. He went to the pathway in Harper Code. The donkey died. But he came and said there was no water over there. He came to Rabba and he wanted to say it, but I'm still potter. Yes, I did go on the river of North which I was not supposed to. But there was no water over there. There happened to be no water. There was no water. It was dried up. And you could believe me because I could have said that I went in the other one. Why do you have to lie for? He could have said, he could have gotten out of it by saying that I did everything right. and I rented it and it died and I'm potter, it was honest. And I would have been potter. So believe me, believe him, whoever believed him, because he didn't have to lie. He could have said that he did everything legal, even though he didn't. He could have lied. Must be that he's not lying. And you have to believe him that there was no water over there.
What's happened? Africa?
Not Pekod, is the river of Pekod.
What's the name of the river?
And there's the river of Mirash.
Oh, it's
Two
a
rivers.
different river. One's
Two
dry,
rivers.
one's good.
One
One
city,
has water,
one city goes through water, the other one doesn't go through
Oh,
water.
why that he drowned in the water? Is that why?
I don't know what
Slip,
happened.
so that's
Whatever,
something
whatever
wrong.
happened over there.
Anyway.
So he said, don't go into water, replace it's dangerous. He said, I went in the water, replaced, but there was no water. And it died for a different reason. So I should be potter. And Rabbi wanted to believe him. I'm like, about. That's how means we're Aiden. Everyone
No,
testified.
proof is.
In come Aiden
Did the
what they
Yarden
did.
dry up? We know the Yarden didn't dry up.
I see, the Aiden here is that there always was water.
Yeah, Rashi says that. I don't know if I would have known it by myself. Rashi says over here, top line, welcome. Anan Sadi, the whole Shaiti Gamai.
Can we come up with something like that? That Adam is Riyadh, Matthias is in Adis.
Okay,
I think we learned it.
I don't
in the
know.
last few months.
Okay, here means that we, even though we're not,
Yeah.
it's not the Matthias, but here the Matthias, we know that the river is always
I'm
flowing. So
saying
they
there
say
is
that
a
it dries
Matthias,
up.
that There's always water, so.
So what does the woman mean to say? That over here, the woman said that I was not defiled. Means she has the big migu. She says I could have said that I hid. But the one takes it to be that that these armies are so parutz that it's like we have Adam that they defiled. To say that they had a woman over there that didn't hide and they didn't defile her, the more looks at it like it's impossible, like it's Adam,
Very ugly.
like a non-sadi. The more looks like a non-sadi, and therefore the more doesn't want to believe her with a migu. If she says that I would hid, okay, if you hid, you hid. And if you don't know, we don't know which one hid, well, not everybody, because everyone can say that I hid. But if she's going to say I did not hide and they don't defile me, how could you believe that? The world looks at it like a non-sadi. The my answer right away that it's not. The my answer is, what's the comparison? Over there, there's Adam that there's water because we know that it doesn't dry up. She definitely was defiled. It's not called a Vada, it's not called the Adim. There's a big chash that the army would defile the one, but not that it's definite. And if she says that they didn't, it's not an impossibility. It's not like Adim.
So we
So,
need to go by the club.
right, so the klal is true. Migu b'mokum Adim is not good. You don't trust the Migu more than Adim or non-Sadi, but this is not a non-Sadi. This is not an Adim Amish. So therefore you could trust it. So it comes out that the woman in the city, that there was a chash that the government, that the army defiled the women, they were all lesser, unless they have. The sort of Mishnah says that there's testimony. If you have an aid, even a woman, that's okay. And the Gemara said if there's a place,
Even a shift.
even a shifcha, that's the Mishnah. And then the Gemara spoke about if they had a place, even one woman should hide, then all the woman could say that I hid. And even
And they
though,
all mutter.
right, and even though it's impossible that everyone hid,
Sorry.
but it's only a chash of a lot of you make all over there, b'shvu yekilu. And also, even if a woman says that it's a migu, that I could have said that I hid, I didn't hide, but I could have said that I hid, also she's mutter, and it's not called the migu b'mokum. The beginning, Gemara had a question about other places where you see that the army's busy when they're and they're not choshet that they're going to pour wine, either by women or susser anyway. What is the chiluk? If it's an invading army, then they're not choshet. If it's an army of the same place, then they are choshet. Sometimes the Gemara said, according to Rav Shot, if there'd be a possibility that one of the women would have ran away, that's how we connected the two sugyas. But the same way we say if there's a hiding place for one woman, everybody's mutter. So too, if there's a possibility one of the women escaped, also each woman can say I was the one who escaped. But then the Gemara said, and according to that side, if you say that's true, so then we'll say they're going to be usher if it was impossible for anybody to escape, like they had guarded by dogs and things that nobody was able to escape. The next Gemara continues about who's that one to say that she was not defiled. So it says in the Mishnah, if there's even a lechad, even a eved, a shifcha, namana. That was the Mishnah. The Gemara says, how about her own shifcha? Her own maidservant. Even her own maidservant, we find someplace else that a woman's own maidservant is loyal to her and not trustworthy. That's talking about a sota. A sota? No, I'm sorry. That's talking about a man gave a get. A man wrote a get. Once he writes the get, even though he didn't give it to her yet, he's not allowed to be with yichud with her, with his wife, because he might have had relations, and the get is not good after they had relations, even though he didn't give it to her yet. She's not divorced. But once he wrote the get, as Rashi calls it a get yashan. It's a get yashan, Beisila also lift up a Gad Yashin. Ezel Gad Yashin, Torah Sachem Imam Malacha Shekas Vula, Zev Shem Yom Okita Kodem Livna. There's a reason why they said that if he had relations with her, or even had yichud with his wife after he wrote the get, that's not a good get. Rashi says the reason is because it might come out that she'll become pregnant from that relation, and then she got a get, and according to the date of the get, it looks like she was divorced already. Really, she had relations with her husband before he got divorced. But since the get was written,
They
so
can
it'll come
prove
out.
it, they can wait for 3 months, can't they?
The get says a date that really is later than he really gave it to her. He gave it to her a week later, a month later, but he wrote it, had a date already, and he had relations with her. Then he gave it to her, but her date says earlier. It says a date from before. So the people will say that the get preceded the relation. And that's the reason. But anyway, it says that she's not allowed to be misyachet. She can't have seclusion with her husband after he wrote a get. So there it says that as long as somebody was there, so it's not yichud. It says she should not be in seclusion with her husband after he wrote a get, only if there are edim. Even a edechad is good enough, even evid, even a shifcha. But it says her own shifcha not. Her own shifcha was not enough to testify that they didn't have relations. The Bnei should leave her as shifcha because she feels comfortable with the shifcha, and she might have had relations even though the shifcha was there, and she trusts that a shifcha is going to be quiet. Even though a regular person would testify that she had relations, but her own shifcha is different. So the Gemara is asking if you see a difference between a shifcha and her own shifcha, so too over here, you should be choshesh that her own shifcha is not believed. Amra papi b'shvuya kilu. The whole thing here is only, you're right, it's a good kasha, but it's b'shvuya kilu. B'shvuya, the whole this over here is only that she might have been defiled. The whole thing is a chasha. We trust even her own shifcha. The papa Amra ha b'shifcha dida b'shifcha didei. That you're right, that here also her own shifcha is not believed. According to the first teretz, that here even her own shifcha is believed. According to Rav Papa, it's a good kasha, and only trust
Somebody else's
shifcha. You don't, or his shifcha, but you don't trust her shifcha. The shifcha dida Allah mehemna, Ketani and other made Allah shifcha dida mehemna. The Mishnah says the only exception is that a person cannot be for themselves. It doesn't say that the shifcha is also not believed. No, that's what I mean. Shifcha salami kas madami. That we say that her shifcha is the same and say she's not believed on herself. Her shifcha is also not believed. Rav Ashi Yama. So we had already Rav Papi, Rav Papa. Here we have Rav Papi, and we have also Rav Papa, and then you have also Rav Ashi. So Rav Papi said that it's much even if it's own shifcha. Rav Papa says her own shifcha is also. Rav Ashi also says that even her own shifcha is also believed. Similarly to Rav Papi, but he says shvuya kilo. He says a different reason. Shifcha mechsi chazia b'shaska. Hasam the shtikus. All the shifcha does, she's loyal to her mistress. She's not going to say anything. She'll be quiet, but she's not going to lie. She would be quiet. She won't give away her mistress, but she wouldn't lie in order to save her. So therefore, Hasam the shtikas matira salam hem over there by the get. If she's quiet, that's the problem. That she might have had relations. She was in seclusion with her husband, and the shifcha was there. But even if she sees that have relations, she's not going to say anything. So we're choshesh for that. But achash the shtikas asrata. Here, if she's quiet, that's the problem. We need somebody that should talk. We need somebody to say, if she's only quiet, it's not enough. She has to be able to testify that my mistress was not defiled.
I thought mehemna means we believe her.
Oh, which was not good over here?
Mehemna.
Again, over there, why is the shifcha not believed? Because her silence is good enough. So we don't trust that. We don't trust her silence because the shifcha might be silent
Because she's so familiar with her.
in order to save her, to protect her mistress. But over here, if she's going to be quiet, it's not good enough. She has to testify. Her silence is going to answer her mistress. She has to be able to testify. To testify that my mistress was not defiled. Then she's believed because she wouldn't lie for her mistress. She would be quiet to save her mistress, but she wouldn't lie. That's the teretz. Maybe why shouldn't she lie? She's not going to do so much. To be quiet, she can be quiet in loyalty to her mistress, even though it's wrong. But she's not going to testify falsely. More is not a story. There's difference between being quiet or testifying. More basic. Interesting story. Nothing to do with our subject. There was a man, his name was Mori Barisik, something name was Chana Barisik, and a brother came from far away. From Beit Chazal, like the other side of the world. And he said, I'm your brother. Now, Mori Barisik, he had a long lost brother, but he didn't know what this was. Someone came and says, I'm your brother. Amalei Plogli B'nefsei, but the father had died. He said, I get half the Yerusha. Somebody came out of no place and says, I'm your brother, and I get half of the inheritance. Now, there was known that there was a missing brother, but he came and said, I'm the brother. Amalei, I don't know you from beings. I don't know you. Also, the Kamed of Christ, I came to have Christ. Amalei Shapir Kamalach to Siv, Yak Yosef Esachavim Lo Ikiru, Malam Vishyasa, Below Chasim Bazakan, Below Chasim Bazakan. So it could be, we know that sometimes you don't trust, you don't recognize somebody after a long time, like Yosef, when afterwards they didn't recognize him, but he recognized them because when he left, so at 17 years old, he didn't have yet a beard, they had a beard, now he had a beard also, so they didn't recognize, so it could be after a long time, he doesn't recognize you. So bring Aiden. Amalei Zil Isi Sadi, bring Aiden, that bring a testimony that you are his brother. Amalei Isli Sadi, I have testimony that I can put down with the brother, but you're talking about here or over there?
Yes.
We're talking about something else. We're talking about here. He comes and says, I'm your brothers. I don't know you. I don't know you. Isli Sadi was the Philomene, the Gabriel Al-Limu. So I have Aiden that he's my brother, but my Aiden must get to talk. My Aiden don't want to testify because they're scared. My brother's a tough guy in mafia. And if they're going to testify that I'm the brother, that I am the brother, and half the Yerusha goes to me, they're scared. They're scared of the consequences. I'm scared. I'm scared. And they're
Is that the word for
scared.
scared?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Aramaic. But Mr. Philomene, they're scared of him. The Gava Alma, because he's a strong guy. He's a strong man. The word Alma means strong. Alimut today they call him. Amalei, so Rav Chisda turned to Moibers. He said, you bring Aiden. Amalei, Lididei, Zelai Sinu, At, the love Achohu. You bring testimony that is not your brother. Means the incoming brother, he said, I have Aiden, but I can't bring them because they're scared. So as Rav Chisda told the home Moibers, you bring Aiden that is not your brother. How do you do that?
That's not fair, is it?
I would say, Amalei, do you know who I didn't know that's not Allah. He's the one who's coming to take out money. He should bring the proof. That's the way I pass it for you and all of this mafia like you. Means because you're a mafiosa, that's why I'm passing like that. Because people are scared of you and you're not a straight guy. There must have been other stories with him that people are scared of him because he makes what is he?
Tough.
He's tough. Dangerous. So people are scared to testify against you. So you have to prove yourself. But the Master has a problem with it. If you're scared that he's such a strong guy, people are scared to testify against him. So maybe he's going to get Aiden to testify for him because people are scared of him. That people are not going to do two things. I mean, they'd be scared. That the reason why they'd be quiet, they won't testify. But to testify a sheker that they won't do. This question we have about is the belief is the own shifcha belief. The same Rapapi, it says, this testimony she was not defiled. Everyone's believed. A man, a woman, a child, a boy, a girl, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister. But not the woman's own son or daughter or own ever bishop, they're not believed to testify for their mother or for their mistress. Another Bryce says everyone's believed except for herself and her husband. So it seems to be that the shifcha is in question. This shifcha is in question. The first Bryce says she's not believed. Second Bryce seems to say that she's believed, and that seems to be because they're papi against Rav Ashi. So my answer is there are papi or there are Ashi Tanoyi. You're right that those who say that she's mutter, that the one who says that the shifcha is believed, this Bryce surely says the shifcha is not believed. So they're going to have to say it's machlokas Tanoyi. But Rav Papa with Tanoyi, Rav Papa who says that the shifcha is not believed, her own shifcha is not believed, is he definitely going to be against the brisa that says that everyone's believed besides herself and the husband? It seems to be against him. That the brisa that says that the only one that's not believed is herself and the husband, he also says that the shifcha is not believed, her own shifcha is not believed. But it means to say this case, if she would be just talking in her innocence, we had a couple of times already this concept of Mesiach Pituma, that a person is talking not in order to do Allah and Bezdin. But there's no talking, saying the news. So then there's more than monos. So that's the reason why when the shifcha is going to be believed, and she's still not going to be believed. Avdimi came from Eretz Yisrael, from Babel to Eretz Yisrael to Babel. He said, from Kartigna, he said the following story. What was the case? Somebody came and said, "Then his innocence." So saying the news, nothing to do about Heter. He came and said, me and my mother were captured by the Goyim. The whole time I was thinking about my mother, looking about my mother, and even if I went to get water, I always had my eye on her, and she was not defiled. Not that he came to say Eidos and Bezdin. He just was saying the news that I always was taking care of her. He's here, Rabbi Lefun al Piv, that he trusted her, even though her mother, we said before that her son is not believed to her mother, but if his Shifcha is believed. So you could say that the Shifcha is not believed, but only Messiah Lefitum. Yashakach, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, no, no.